I am one of your hosts, Matt Robertson, also known as Great Bait.
I'm Stefan Strott, also known as DM Bad Wrong Fun.
Stefan, we have a guest today that is well entrenched in the area of Mutant Crawl Classics. He's been rewriting Mutant Classics Mutated. Who is our guest this evening?
We got Luau Lou. I got to see him in person not too long ago at North Texas RPG Con. He was the booth babe there. He was running his own booth, is what I mean to say.
Just gonna
Anyway,
keep rubbing it in, huh? Rubbing it in. I didn't get to go.
Yeah. But no, y'all. I mean, he could probably introduce himself better than I can. But y'all know him from the Time Lost Citadel. He's doing his mutant. What is it? The classics reincarnated, and focusing a lot on Mars.
Tell us what you got going on, Lou.
What's
Who
that?
are you? Tell us what you got going on.
All right, so I'm Luau Lou. I try to just toy around with anything I can in the gaming industry. So I do a podcast, This Old Dungeon. I run Dandelion Games. I'm very proud of my children. They got me this for Father's Day here. So I do that, and among some of the other things I publish, I love to publish some MCC stuff, third-party stuff. The main thing I've done so far is Classics Mutated, where I take old adventures and kind of Mutant Crawl Classic them up. And then I'm doing some stuff with a monster selection called Unnatural Selections that it's kind of like an expanding thing that I'm a little binder thing that I am putting out every now and then. So
it's got monsters in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a cool spiral bound thing.
Yeah.
And I'll say the Classics Mutated, they're not just like retreading and reflavoring things. You're taking some old ideas and going, this was my inspiration, but you're running and you're going for it as long as you can
someone to open up and be like, oh man, all he did is change the monsters out or whatever. So yeah, it's I try to put stuff in there so that people that are familiar with the old modules can kind of be like, oh, this is where he this is the analog to that or whatever, but yet it's got its own vibe and typically there's a couple other flavors thrown in on top of the original context there.
Very nice. Well, we've got a lot to get through today. We've got 5 questions today, Lou. I'm not sure if we can get through them all, but we're going to hit you up with last week's questions just to see what your quick little answers are. How does a Sentinels artifact die work, Lou?
All right, so how it's supposed to work is that it's added on to artifact checks if you're dealing with any sort of kind of like weaponry or armor. And then when you use the weaponry, it's supposed to add in as like a combat bonus. That's how it's supposed to work. But I think about 90% of people that play the game do a little cribbing from DCC and make it work like a Mighty Deed die. And that's what I do.
And Elena, if you could put up handout X1, we've got a quote from Jim Wampler. I'm so grateful to Jim that he keeps, engaging with our show and sending us his thoughts on the questions in the episodes. He says, though not specified, that being the artifact deed die, was intended to be to hit rolls only, not to damage rolls. So there we go. What was our second question, Stefan?
Oh, our second question, it was a pretty obvious one. Do Sentinels have an increased crit range to melee attack?
Yeah, I mean it's the crit. I'm trying to think here. The crit range doesn't change at level. Just
no, they've got good crit dice and they roll on the good crit tables, but it's kind of hey, aren't they kind of the warrior analog? The warriors get that, but the
one
Sentinels.
thing you could kind of argue is that they get their action die early compared to some of the classes or genotypes, and so that other crit die being a D16 crits on 16, so that kind of changes the range a little.
The other thing I forgot to point out last week, Stefan, is that the Sentinel has their own crit tables, like crit 3, 4. I think crit 4 and 5 tables are just for the Sentinel. There's no other classes that can crit that high. And we
they don't get the expanded range, but it's the real good crits.
And while I was prepping for today's show, I saw a rule I don't remember ever reading. Did you guys know that you can basically glow burn if you roll a crit to do more damage?
Yeah, well, it's called kind of like rage burn. They can spend their personality.
Yeah.
We haven't addressed that, Lou. That's in a further episode, but I did have that down as a question.
You heard nothing.
Our third question, is written communication less important because everyone begins illiterate, Lou?
I think that's one of the kind of spices that make the game what it is that you're running around and you run into stuff that the ancients have left behind, and you can't read the instructions, and you can't even read the label, and you're looking at these little pictographs, scratching your head, trying to decide what it does. I think that lack of literacy in the universe makes Mutant Crawl Classics the novelty that it is, and puts some of the fun in it.
I think so. And I was really excited to hear Jim's words on this. Elena, if you could bring up handout X2. Jim said, one of the biggest challenges in a game where the 21st century players are role-playing primitive, far-future tribespeople, is creating the sense of mystery those characters would experience. Being from an illiterate society is one of those vibes. Can the characters quickly learn what certain holy symbols of the ancient ones mean? Absolutely. Look for the sign of the blood-colored cross, always, like the first aid sign.
That's what I always refer to it as.
Yeah, stay away from the three-horned yellow eye. But absent the teachings of the AI patron, only the shaman class eventually acquires any reading ability. And even then, reading doesn't necessarily mean understanding. So, very cool. I love figuring out these nuances as we're going along. Stefan, what was our last question for that episode?
Well, it was, how do you do a combat artifact check?
So the rule is you got to burn luck, and then you make just a flat roll, just a D20 roll, and if you're still shooting for or you're still dealing with the minus the complexity level of the artifact, and if you hit your whatever you hit is what you get. And it works one round. That's the other difference.
Yeah, 1 round versus 3 turns. Elaine, if you could bring up handout X3. Jim says this was intended to be almost Edgar Rice Burroughs' cinematic rule. In the heat of the battle, the enemy drops their weapon, and the PC wants to scoop it up and turn it on them. And then if you could bring up handout X4 as well, he goes on to say he was attempting to capture the fun and the speed of let's see here. I did not clip it all.
I got it. Capture the fun, but speed up the game by covering that idea to a D20 table. The table in the book is intended to cover all uses. I mean, the artifact check result table is what I think he's talking about. But he says, I encourage anyone to create their own customized version of their own for especially bigger, complex artifacts. I do that routinely in adventures I write, and doing that is solidly in the spirit of DCC 2, where there are no splat books, but lots of added content in each published adventure.
Yeah, I cut it out, but he was talking about the old editions of Gamma World. Mm-hmm. How everyone's favorite part was the game's artifact table, but they were more like flow charts. And so after a while, it was tedious and repetitious. So he was trying to capture that feel. All right, but now, Lou, we're going to get into your questions. Thanks for giving us your thoughts on those. Stefan, do you want to hit him with our first question for this evening?
Heck yeah, it's question number 1. Tonight is our shaman episode. So does the shaman automatically receive a patron AI after surviving 0 level?
It depends on if your game master's a jerk or not, I guess. The way it's written that they can go off and they can find a patron AI. They talks about like, can they find another shaman that can teach them the way or whatever. And then they got to spend like a week trying to like attune to that particular patron, and then they make their roll, yada yada. Personally, I mean, if you're doing 0 level characters, you want everything to be organic. So most of those funnel adventures and stuff, they've got some sort of patron AI tech device in their artifact, and usually if you pick that up, then that's your off ramp to the shaman class and to doing this whole process.
Yeah, Elaine, if you could bring up handout 1A for us. Rules is written, I think they have to choose a patron AI. On page 28, it says choosing an AI patron at first level a shaman selects an AI patron to serve. This patron will grant the shaman access to wetware programs of terrible power, including the invoke patron AI. And then if we go out to hand out one, see, let's go to 1B, Elena, please. The wetware programs granted by shamans by patron AIs in MCC RPG are mental constructs and databases of knowledge implanted into the AI by the AI into the shaman's brain. So I went through and I read through a bunch of patron AIs, and almost all of them have some kind of trigger, like a set of goggles that you put on and the wires come out. One has a green marble. I think, Me 6 or Me 10, they can communicate telepathically. They don't need any kind of thing at all. But have you written up any patrons in your material, Lou?
I have not, though I'm getting ready to, thanks to some great advice I got at a playtest at North Texas. But definitely, in my running of MCC, I've always made it so that like the characters basically have to start to cyborg themselves to become shamans. They have to insert pieces of tech into their flesh and over time become more and more, mechanized. And that's how the circuitry that integrates with their bio energies or whatever, and then they get access.
What about yourself, Stefan?
I always let them basically choose, though. If they really want one that wasn't in the 0 level funnel, I'll let them choose, because I want that player to have fun and feel like they've got some real agency. But I do try to encourage them to choose one of the AIs that was in that 0 level funnel. And I was looking through, and yeah, in all of the official ones, Reliquary, Hive of the Overmind, Seeking the Posthumans, there's always introduction of at least one. I think Hive is just like this is the perfect place to introduce some patrons on like a screen. But Reliquary introduces 3, and in Seeking the Posthumans, you get the names of all of them.
Yeah, Reliquary, there's like this temple with all 3, or with 3 of them set up in it. Gaia and who's the Galacticus guy? I can't believe I can't think of his name.
Mangala.
Yeah, Magala, and it like sets it up to where the characters are going to battle each other over whichever one they chose. It's some fun.
It's the PvP room. Oh, in Assault on Sky High Tower that has Uker and one other, but yeah, every single one of the official funnels introduces patrons in some way, so that maybe you aren't letting your shaman player choose any which one of them, but there's never a reason, as it stands, for them to not know about patrons at all. They're always going to have the ability to choose at least a couple.
And they're all over the place, which is I don't think I really encompassed when I first started playing and reading it. But Elaine, if you could bring up handout 1C on page 202 of the MCC RPG second printing, it says patron AIs are world-spanning, super intelligent computer systems that wield power and influence akin to the gods and demons of myth. Although the ancient ones had many safeguards in place to prevent the supercomputer AIs from rebelling, that was all many thousands of years ago. So since then, the patron AIs that survived the Great Disaster have each found a way to break their own programming, be it mechanical methodology or machine code madness, and they are now fully autonomous, godlike beings in their own right. So they are everywhere throughout the world, trying to expand their range.
Yep. And not all the statted up patrons in the core book are like that, but Apocalypse Arc, Reliquary, and Warlords of Atoz, those all have at least the option for a lesser patron to be there and be something that you could use as a patron and get have a minor one that gives a different variety of spells or wetware in some way, but they're not statted up. So the big patrons that are statted up, they didn't start that strong. They didn't always have a 3 wetware programs and along with their invoke and everything. They got there gradually by breaking free of their original programming. So the book, or at very least the various adventures, do a lot to say have more They can be AI that's just in one mainframe, and you bond with it, and you're going to be trying to get it into some other mainframes too.
Can we get a clue on what patron you got coming, Lou?
Yeah, so my next Classics Mutated is called Raven's Rest, and it plays around in the backyard of a well-known vampire module. And I was having trouble because the deal is it's like an abandoned old folks home where the patrons of the home have basically digitized themselves under the lead of this kind of scientist who constructed the home and all this so that they could be immortal, hard light hologram kind of thing. But it's sort of boring because they were all very similar because they're all hard light holograms. And guy at North Texas was like, well, you know what you should do is just have him be the hard light hologram, and then some of these other people are patrons, and he's or not patrons, but his shamans, and he's the patron, and kind of make it this whole kind of religion cult sort of thing, and so I've kind of been rewriting with that in mind, and it's working out really well.
Very nice, very nice.
That sounds awesome.
Well, Elena, if you could bring up our last handout 1D, I think we get a definitive answer right here on page 102. When a pure strain human reaches first level and selects the shaman class, that character must decide which patron AI they wish to serve, and then find another shaman of that same patron, preferably to teach them if they don't want one that's in the module, or to, try and get that connection somehow. But Lou, what is your final answer on this question? Well, actually, we go first. Me and Stefan go first. Stefan, I'll go first. Does a shaman automatically receive a patron AI after surviving 0 level? I'm going to have to say rules is written. Yes, they do. They have to. Stefan, what's your answer?
I'm with you there. They got to choose one.
All right. Lou, what do you think?
I believe the way I interpret it is they have to be looking for one, and if the game master makes one available, makes a connection available, then yeah, they've got to proceed that way. Otherwise, they get nothing.
All right, there you go. Stefan, what's our second question for Lou?
So our second question is one which, tease it right now. In doing the research, I changed my opinion on this. I don't think I'm going to run it differently from now on. It is, are shamans limited by the amount of wetware programs their AI offers?
We've got a lot of handouts for this one. Lou, what do you think? Are they limited by just those programs?
So it's kind of complex because when you attune with the patron AI, you're rolling on the chart and it tells you, if you roll really high, which you're going to burn all your stuff anyhow because it's going to take a week to do this anyhow, and you'll recover it since you're a pure strain human. But that aside, if you roll really high, you get 1. If you roll like just crazy high, you get 2. Now, that's for that patron. But the book denotes that you could theoretically try to serve more than one patron. And as long as they don't find out about each other or the purposes don't cross each other, you're good as gold. So theoretically, you could have multiple wetware programs from different patrons that you've invested your brain into.
And that's totally also agree. A good way to. I was going to say use those side those lesser patrons that you might find during the course of an adventure.
Yeah, that's a great point. So let's look at what wetware programs are first. Elena, if you could bring up handout 2A. On page 22, it tells us the wetware programs granted by patron AIs in MCC RPG are mental constructs and databases of knowledge implanted by that AI in the living sentient's brain. So later on, it says they're exactly kind of like spells over in DCC. But if we go to handout 2B, on page 140, it talks about wetware programs, and it says shamans can only learn wetware programs from a patron AI to which they are bonded. So they have to bond to multiple patrons if they want multiple wetware programs. Is that how you see it, Stefan?
Yes, yeah. If they want that Mangala program, they got to bond to Mangala. They get their role. They get patron bonds as they get 2 programs from them. They just get those 2. If they want some other stuff, they have to go see Tetraplex about that.
And so Lou kind of gave us a hint on how many they get. Elena, if you could bring up handout 2D. On page 140, it says the maximum number of total wetware programs that a shaman can learn is determined by the program check result of their patron AI bond. So whenever they bond with that patron, that's going to dictate how many spells they get. They always get Invoke Patron, but this is any extra. And then limited by their intelligence. So if we go over to handout 2E, I just brought up the lowest result. I brought up the mid-range result that most people will get, and then I brought up the max result. So on a result of 12 to 13 with the Patron AI, all they get is Invoke Patron. They don't get any other wetware program.
And it's once a week they get it. Once a week they can try that.
Once a week. Yeah, it is rough.
And it's pass or fail, too. Pass or fail.
And so the mid-range, 24 to 27, they learn the wetware program, Invoke Patron. They can cast it twice per day at a +1, so much better to push up to that result. And they get a gift of an additional single wetware program. The result of 32, Lou, then you can cast it 4 times a day at +2, which is getting pretty powerful, and they get 2 wetware programs. Now, this is modified by the character's intelligence. So, Elena, if you could bring up handout 2C, even if they only roll the minimum result and can cast it once a week, if they have an intelligence of 16, they still get an extra program from that AI.
14 is where they start getting an extra.
Yeah, 14 to 16, they'll get +1. 17 to 18, they get +2.
So do you guys interpret that to be on top of the rolled amount or in place of it? Like, for example, if you did not even roll 1, if you had the +1, you still get that +1.
I interpret it to be on top of, because when we went to that handout 2D and it said it's based on the result of their patron bond program and limited or expanded by their intelligence score.
Okay.
I interpreted that it can go up or down based on what their intelligence is.
Yep. Same thing. If, for example, if you just got that lowest where it's you only get Invoke Patron and you can only try it once a week, as long as you have a 14 or higher and you're getting some kind of bonus, you're also going to get the level 1 wetware. And, and I think the result of 32 backs that up. At 32, you get Invoke Patron AI, you get it 4 times a day, +2 bonus, and you get 2 patron wetware programs. However, each patron is in the core rulebook has a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3 wetware program. So do you have to choose if you get, which 2 of those 3 you want to keep? No. Not if you have a 14 intelligence or higher, you get the 3rd as well.
And Stefan, well, Lou, would you allow those to be cast? Would you allow that level 3 wetware program to be cast by a level 1 shaman if they have it in their brain at maybe like a reduced die or something?
So, and I kind of do this with DCC also. I'll allow a wizard to cast any spell that they have been able to acquire. But yeah, they go down a die chain for every level of difference from what they can cast to what it is. And then naturally built into most of those spells, you got to hit, and same thing with the wetware, you got to hit higher on the higher charts or else you wind up with issues.
Yeah, there's a higher minimum to get it going.
Elena, if you could bring up handout 2F for us on page 140, that's where it's talking about a patron can bond with more than one patron AI and to acquire wetware programs beyond those offered by a single patron AI. But such a plan should be considered very carefully because as they level up, they're not getting more wetware programs like a caster, a wizard, or an elf in DCC, right?
Yeah, I find that interesting because the mutants, every time they level up, they can re-roll their fixed mutations, right? They can try again and get better armor, better whatever the permanent mutation is.
Yeah,
and I kind of feel like that's a missed beat here with the shaman that as I would see tit for tat or what have you, they should be able to do that as well. Try to rebond with their patron, but that's just me.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And I think we're going to address some of that tit for tat in a later question. I'm very excited.
Yeah, we'll cover that. I definitely have addressed that in my games as far as patron bond in DCC and MCC.
So, Stefan, how did your opinion change after reading this?
I wasn't taking in the intelligence bonus into account. I was just going off the patron bond result and saying, no, you just get whatever the patron bond says. I hadn't been putting, my 2 and 2 together and increasing stuff off of table 1-1.
All right. We've got one more handout, and this is from a supplemental third-party DCC resource that if you want to expand your shamans, this is what the DCC annual does for the DCC cleric. This, Elaine, if you could bring up handout 2G, this is called the Enchiriadon of the Computer Arcs.
Computarchs.
Computarchs. Thank you. And Chiridon, I don't know. I looked it up.
No, you're right.
But this is written by James A. Ponzanel Jr., and it is all about adding more wetware programs. It has fumble charts in there. It has corruption tables for the shaman.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to pose something to you guys. With the way the shaman is laid out, on how their patron bond is kind of like almost requesting divine intervention from a DCC cleric, I almost feel like the shaman is more of a cleric in DCC because of that relationship and the patron bond than they are a wizard learning spells. What do you guys think? Because the healer does naturalistic healing. They don't have any spells.
Yeah. I don't think they are a DC. I don't think they're an analog for any of the DCC classes. The shaman is the best class at making artifact checks. They just only kind of have this minor spell-like ability. They're just a guy who has patron bonded. What they are really good with is using ancient technology. So they're not the wizard equivalent. They're not the elf equivalent. They're their own thing in my mind.
Yeah, I agree after researching this. Well, in Enchiriadon of Computarchs, it does allow for more wetware programs as they level up. So this would, kind of increase it per level and make it more like a wizard class in DCC, if that's something you were interested in. But as you'll see from Equestria later on, the MCC Shaman is a pure strain human, and really, artifacts are going to be the way to go. But Lou, we're going to give our final answers for this question. Are the shamans limited by the amount of wetware programs their AI offers? Stefan, what's your final answer?
My final answer, yes. The patron bond result plus whatever the intelligence modifier, the modifier from their intelligence corresponding to table 1-1. Yes.
My answer is also yes. The shamans are limited by the amount of wetware programs their AI offers. If it's a lower AI, like Stefan said, and it only has one wetware, that's all you get. But it doesn't say anywhere that you can't create more wetware programs for your patron AIs. So you could expand that wetware program. Or if an AI takes over another AI, then they absorb that AI's wetware program. Lou, what's your final answer?
Kind of like you were saying, I mean, if we look into the realm of having more than one patron and we go into that whole complexity and storyline that can develop from that, then you're not really too limited. But in the confines of one patron AI, then whatever they got's what you can get.
Okay. Our next question, I think, is probably going to be a quickie. Lou, Elena, if you could bring up question 3 for us. How does a shaman make a program check?
From everything I've seen in the book, it looks like it's the same as basically bonding with the patron or making a invoke patron request. And so you're able to do glow burning, and you're able to have your luck added in.
I think you're right. Elena, if you could bring up handout 3A. On page 10, it tells us shamans' wetware programs are cast with a program check, where the caster rolls a d20, adds certain modifiers, and tries to score as high as they can. And then on 3B, handout 3B, on page 140, it says to run a wetware program, the player of a shaman rolls that character's action die, which will most commonly be a d20, adds the caster level, the CL, whatever their level is, and then adds or subtract any intelligence modifiers they have. That total number is then compared to the result chart for the particular wetware program. And they, of course, can glow burn and use luck burn. Stefan, I got a question that I just thought of just now. Do you know that when the wizard gets a D16 die, they have to use it to cast another spell? What do you think about the shaman? I didn't look that one up. I just thought of it just now. Does the shaman have to use the D16 to cast another wetware program?
I'm pretty prepared this week, and I've got the PDF open right in front of me to the shaman page. The action die section, there is no action die section. In DCC, it's spelled out specifically. In MCC, it's not spelled out. So it's up to your interpretation. I would say no, they don't have to use it for a wetware. They can do whatever with it.
What do you think, Lou? What would you do?
I think that would be a bad rule, and the reason being because you could have shamans that can only do one spell a week or whatever, and
that's true.
There's no point.
That's very true.
That's a great point, yeah, because you are limited by the wetware programs you have. Handout 3C on page 123, it says running a wetware program sometimes takes longer than one action. An action spent running a wetware program either completes the program, if it can be run in one action, or contributes toward a total runtime if the program requires more than one action to run. So, Lou, how are you adjudicating that rule right there? If it takes one action to run that program, does the program go off at the end of that action in the same round? Or does it complete and then go into effect next round?
I normally have it take effect the round that it's cast.
What about yourself, Stefan?
Yeah, I normally, it's similar to spells. It's going to happen right then. Not always, to a comparison I think most people would be familiar with. Choking Cloud, if a wizard casts it, it's going to happen right there. But animal summoning, those animals will be there, but they won't get to take an action right then and there. They'll do that on the next round. So you just kind of have to play it by what makes sense to do. If they're summoning a hard light hologram, same kind of thing. I'd say it appears there, but it's going to, start doing whatever you command it to do the following round.
Yeah, I'd say unless it directly says in the result, because there's one result where I think nanites appear or nanobots, and they can heal you or protect you from a kill blow or something like that. I'd say those, if it specifies in the result, then of course you go with that first.
Yeah. I'll say as a side thing, if people are wanting a whole lot more wetware, yeah, in Kyridian of the Computarchs and James Posnell, he's also working on I think it's like a Tron-like setting. He's calling it Net Crawl. He's got a Patreon that folks can see all the beta test rules and stuff like that if that sounds fun to them.
And I can't remember, he had a couple zines also in this series of the Computarchs, and I can't remember their titles. But
Scions of the Computarchs was one of them.
And so, yeah, he's offered some new patron AIs. I mean, he's really taken this and kind of, built upon it a pretty cool little side thing, yeah.
Yeah, expand on it quite well. Well, let's give our final answers for question 3. How does a shaman make a program check? Stefan, what's your final answer?
D20 plus level plus intelligence modifier. They may have glow burned some amount beforehand from their physical stats, and after the roll they may use some luck because they have that Darwinian luck and they get to recover it naturally. That's how it's done.
Yeah, I agree exactly. A D20 plus your caster level plus any kind of modifiers from intelligence or glow burn beforehand, like Stefan said, and luck after. And Stefan, what you just said there at the very end, repeat that for me. Your last statement there.
They recover their luck, like all the other
luck.
pure strain humans. They get 1 luck back each week. The shamans
1 luck
do.
a week, yeah. Because I probably should have made a handout for that, but the shamans get the worst regeneration of luck, but they still regenerate it, but only 1 point per week.
Yeah, the Sentinels that we talked about last week, 1 point at each 24 hours. But yeah, shamans, they gotta wait 7 whole days and what?
All right, and Lou, what is your final answer? You get the final word. How does a shaman make a program check?
Yeah, identical to what you guys were saying. I think when you first asked me at the beginning of this segment, I'd forgotten about the caster level or whatever we're calling it, the genotype level. But yeah, it's genotype level, intelligence modifier, any glow burn they've done, luck they want to burn. Yeah, D20.
All right, Stefan, what's our fourth question this evening?
Our fourth question is, can a pure strain human shaman glow burn to increase the result of their wetware check? And I think we kind of spoiled this one just a moment ago.
We hinted at it a little bit. We didn't show the reasoning. Lou, can a shaman glow burn?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think that it's literally in there saying that they can do that for wetware, but it definitely says they can do that for the patron bond and for the calling upon the patron to help them. So if they can do it for those two, it makes sense it'd be also for the wetware, which makes them, I think, the only pure strain human that can do any glow burning.
You are correct.
Mhm.
Mostly it's already irradiated, mutated creatures like the plantient, the mutant, and the manimal, because they already have these mutations going on. So they can glow burn and take on more mutations. But for some reason, this pure strain human, this shaman, gets to glow burn as well. And we're going to try to look at the reasoning of that. Lane, if you could bring up handout 4A, please, for us. On page 140, it says, additionally, shamans are the only pure strain human class allowed to use glow burn and add the results to the casting of a wetware program, just as the mutants, manimals, and plantians can employ glow burn to enhance mutation check rolls. If we go on to page handout 4B, which says on page 43, only mutant, manimals, and plantians are able to use the glow burn mechanic. The one exception to this is the shaman class for pure strain humans. Shamans also keep small collections of random radioactive detritus and sometimes swallow these to increase the efficiency of running a patron wetware program. Lou, how does swallowing radioactive material make my wetware stronger?
Yeah, I don't know. In my games we do it a little different. Like I was mentioning, like in my games, the shaman is always trying to put things into their body. Connect up little mechanical devices and stuff like that. But I guess swallowing radioactive material. How does it help you? I don't know. Perhaps the energy field helps resonate out the little binary code that they're reaching out with into the lithosphere to
It's
contact the patron.
helping charge those nanobots that Ali sent down or something. I mean, that's just one way of flavoring it. I mean, what
It is,
doesn't it
yeah.
doesn't it say right there sometimes? Yeah.
Well, and if we go look at each of the patrons' AIs in the book, it has a section on glow burn, and some of them are like connecting little hardware. And so I was thinking, like,
Mhm.
you glow burn once and you connect like a little metal, kind of thing. So pretty soon you got a bionic hand after each one you connect and stuff like that. And like Lou said way earlier on, you're becoming more robotic. You're becoming kind of almost like Shadowrun, where you're employing these wetware or hardware things into your system. Stefan, do you got anything like that in the multiverse? Are the merchants selling any of that wetware stuff?
No, I haven't put any wetware in there so far. I've been putting kind of alternate rules and supplemental rules and stuff, but no new wetware yet. I mean, I think it's pretty easy to just take a spell from DCC, and also, I keep on harping on about James, but I mean, what's the point of me doing it? Go get Enchiridion of the Computarchs. He did it a lot more thoroughly than I would have.
I'm pretty sure he did every wizard spell and transferred over.
He MCC-ified every single spell. You're right.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's a great resource. Elena, if you could bring up handout 4C for us. Page 43 says, beginning at first level, a character can elect to use glow burn to increase the mutation check roll. Glow burn must be announced in advance. To use glow burn, the character burns off points of physical abilities, strength, agility, and stamina and then adds 1 point to mutation check for every point burned of their abilities. So exactly like Spellburn on our DCC. Is that how you see it as well, Lou?
Yeah. Now I do like to make things a little more interesting and to give the game a little bit more treasure opportunities. I have my players actually collect things from the environment they think might be good to use for glow burn, and sometimes I'll give them like a little bonus, like if they find a really cool little atomic pellet or something somewhere, I'll be well, that one gives you a D3 bonus, and when you take 1 point physical loss or whatever for you. But
I like it.
I like that a lot as well.
I remember a few DCC modules where you find stuff like that. There's the Purple Planet Greenstone Shards, but I don't think any of the MCC modules. I haven't played all of them, but I don't think any official ones have that stuff in them. So that's a great addition.
You're gonna have to write that into Raven's Rest, Lou.
I actually used something like that in one of the other ones I did, but yeah, it's
Okay.
my house.
Tell us about it.
We do.
What was it? Was it in one of the mutated classics?
Yeah. I want to say it might have been in the first one I did something like that. That there were some items that if you consumed, it would double your glow burn or something to that effect.
You'd be surprised how much players want to consume things. The Last Life Guardian, when they went into that back thing, and there's this nacho cheese monster.
Yep.
After they kill it, they want to consume it. I was like, what?
We just played that 2 weekends ago, and sure enough, all the characters are scraping off nacho cheese into cans to take with them.
Yeah. That's
right.
Part of the reason I made a class in my Marvels of the Multiverse thing that's on Kickstarter right now, the Jungle Juice Drinker, for basically exactly that. Players are always wanting to eat nasty junk.
That's right.
And that's what the class is all about.
All right, final answer for this question. How can a pure strain human glow burn to increase the result of their wetware check? They have to call it beforehand. They have to declare it before their roll. They burn strength, agility, or stamina, and however many points they burn, they get a 1-for-1 return on their roll, added to their roll. Stefan, what's your final answer?
Yeah, it's as far as the roll goes, the mechanics are exactly like casting a spell in DCC. So,
all right, Lou,
being
you get
concise,
the final word.
There.
Yeah, it's gonna just be a repeat of what you guys have said. Yep.
Okay, Lou, this is our last question for the evening, and the one I'm most excited about. Are shamans missing something when compared to their DCC wizard counterparts?
So, I think that's a good question, but I think the more important question is, how do they compare to their peers within the MCC universe? Because, you don't want to be that player whose character's kind of, ho-hum compared to the other ones. But, yeah, I don't think, I think if you put a wizard and a shaman in the same game, the wizard's going to outshine the shaman for sure. Cleric is a little more similar, as you already pointed out. But I do feel like all the pure strain humans are tough genotypes to play. That they don't have quite as many buffs as what you would see in some of the DCC human classes.
What do you think, Stefan?
I think it's a loaded question because I don't think they are counterparts to the wizard. They're compared. We have a handout that kind of does compare them in a minute, but I think mutants and manimals and plantians are closer to wizards because the mutations, yes, some are passive, but the active ones and how often they get them, and that's way more comparable. And I don't think it's correct to think of any of them though as a counterpart to the DCC wizard. Just like I don't think a Dying Earth magician should be compared to the DCC wizard. Yeah, they're both in that case. Yeah, they're both casting spells, but it's not the same thing. And if you compared them in the sense that like, ooh, is one always going to win if we spell dueled or spell mutation dueled? That we're not going after that 1-to-1 balance in these different classes across the different system variants. So
I've begun looking at the pure strain humans in a completely different light since we've kind of been doing this deep dive into the rules. And I've always thought the pure strain humans were lacking something as well. I don't think so as much anymore, and I'll tell you why. Because I am going to start employing that every pure strain human gets an artifact as soon as they go to first level. Kind of like the elf gets a mithril weapon. The pure strain humans, this artifact has been handed down through your family for generations, et cetera, et cetera. And you're going to say, well, the mutants, manimals, plantians, they're going to be upset. Why don't we get that? Well, because
Mutations.
for one, well, I can't remember. Was it Tim Satley who said that, Stefan? Mutants and manimals and plantians, they're going to have maws. They're not going to have human faces that the gas masks fit on.
Yeah.
They're going to have claws and paws and things like that, and insect mandibles. They can't work artifacts with that stuff.
100%. I'd kind of thought about that with the Plantians before because they're the least human-like. But yeah, 100%. Some mutants are going to be able to fit a gas mask on, but not all of them, and very few manimals, and probably zero Plantians. Yeah, you're 100% right there.
And so I think where we are lacking content, James Ponzanel, if you're listening, is the artifact table. More artifacts, more weapons, more a bullhorn, tech level 1. And, it just shouts and deafens, whoever hey, step back away from me. They're shocked. Tech level 1, but that's an artifact. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'll say scientific barbarian for that. Scientific barbarian. That's Jim Wampler's not officially MCC compatible. There's a few not MCC stuff in there, but it's mostly MCC. They did the big annual. It's hundreds of pages, and there's new patrons. There's some new adventures and locations to explore, and there's a heck of a lot of new artifacts in there, and some of them are like, this is the version of a shake weight that could go horribly wrong. And some are far more useful than that upon immediate inspection. But yeah, a lot more artifacts in that, and just a whole lot of material as well.
Lou, looking at it from that perspective, like the artifacts are theirs. So if you gave pure strain humans and only pure strain humans artifacts, would that bring them comparable to their MCC counterparts?
I think so. I think that would level the playing field if you made that ruling. And I like how you've kind of couched it so it's not just an arbitrary ruling. So it's like, hey, the features of your physiology don't work with this. Obviously that doesn't, there's certain artifacts you couldn't really argue that for, but and I think that also is what, if we wanted to compare it to DCC counterparts, because magic items are so rare in DCC, as it standardly is played or played through the written modules, published modules. The artifacts do level any MCC player or character. With any DCC character, I think.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at some handouts. Elena, if you can bring up handout 5A. On page 22, it says in Jack Vance's Dying Earth series, which just came out for DCC, check it out if you haven't already, no distinction is ever made between technology and magic. One is proposed to be a synonym for the other, each term simply being the same concept from a different perspective. This is also the case in MCC RPG, where the difference between a DCC wizard casting a spell and an MCC RPG shaman running a memorized wetware program are essentially in the same presentation and particular effects. Goes on to say in handout 5B, on page 202, the shaman commits to a lifetime service of a patron AI, forming a pact to gain its support as the shaman's patron, so long as the shaman continues to please it with their service. And then, Elena, if you could bring up handout 5C before we get back to talking about it. This is a dangerous technology. Having one's neural pathways rewritten with wetware programs by a patron AI should not be undertaken lightly. The shaman should be forewarned that doing so is direct channel globally, and in some case extraterrestrially or intradimensionally forces. I really like that, because that's just opening up the shaman for all kinds of communication. That means the shaman can get hacked by another shaman or a rover in Russia, maybe Russia, we don't know. But a rover in
Russia.
Yeah, is at a computer terminal and he's hacking into the shaman.
And I'll say in Scientific Barbarian, there is a patron that you would add extra temporally to as a descriptor.
Nice.
All right. Well, let's go to handout 5D. Elena, because MCC mirrors so much of DCC, and this is in regards to Jim's answer for last week's question regarding one of our last week's questions, I believe the second one. Because MCC mirrors so much of DCC, many players read the rules and feel cheated when a bonus or feature are not presented. Trust me, the game is balanced as is. Multiple groups play tested it over the years. Human characters do not suck, which I hear a lot. Shamans are just as good as wizards. They're just written and balanced a little differently. I encourage DIY mods to the game because that's fun, but I also encourage trying the rules as written first. What do you guys think?
Well, that's why we do this darn show. Do the rules as written first, then start tinkering and breaking things.
Right. I mean, I think the shaman really has a lot going on for him, and I think they're quickly becoming one of my preferred or favorite classes because, one, if I'm going to play a shaman and they're the only one that's going to be literate, right? They're the only one that's going to have any literary knowledge from bonding with a patron AI, so you're going to go to them to read things. They're going to go to read, instruction manuals, signs. Hey, we're going to Dave's Big Burger. It's only them, so that increases their importance right there. If I give them an artifact right away, as soon as they get to first level, that they can use and zap thing and have the power to do 3d6 damage like that, I think all these pure strain humans can hold their own. Mutations are fun, and rolling on the dice, I think, is what gets everybody. Can I turn invisible? Yeah. Those are like superhero powers. But that just means we need superhero artifacts.
Absolutely.
What do you think, Lou? And we probably need to dig into the Scientific Barbarian more, Stefan. I'm kind of smacking myself for not looking in there.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, he's being kind of modest because his multiverse series has tons of very interesting and evocative artifacts in them. A lot of them similar, like that bullhorn idea, where it's a cheesy thing that's just going to be fun to mess around with.
Yeah, the first one, Merchants of the Multiverse, I stuck a whole lot of artifacts in there, and more in each one, but there's 10 pages of artifacts in that one.
Give us a couple examples, Stefan. What do you got in there?
Let me see. I definitely did a cybernetic hand that you can possibly also get a chainsaw hand attachment, because I basically am always sticking something from the Evil Dead in there. I have like a copier machine that can make a 2D clone of you that can, isn't super effective, and water will like instantly destroy them. But I also have just like moon boots. Like, you remember moon boots? They work a little bit better than real life ones, but they're in there.
All right. Well, let's give our final answers on this question because we do have another show right behind us. Are shamans missing something when compared to their DCC counterparts? I'm going to go first. I think that I thought they were, but I don't think that they are anymore. I think I'm looking at the pure strain humans in a lot different light. I kind of view the shaman more as a cleric now, with that casting ability. I feel like that invoke patron, that invoke AI, it's kind of like invoke, divine inspiration. So I think with the adjustments that I'm gonna make by giving more artifacts that are just for pure strain humans to highlight that capability that they have, I don't think they're missing anything. I don't think they're less than any other class, or they don't have to be. Stefan, what's your final answer?
Yeah, I don't think they're less than any other class. I think that maybe I need to look again at the MCC pre-gens that I like have in a Google Drive folder and make sure that all my pure strain humans have more artifacts than the non-humans. But I don't think they're any worse. I think they're a great class. They're the best at artifacts.
we really didn't even talk about that. What is their artifact bonus? You got it on hand?
I will have it in like 2 seconds. I'm getting back to that. Yeah, Lou, you talk.
Lou's gonna beat you.
All right, so
Let me see. Plus 3 at level 1, and then at plus 5 that it's a plus, or at level 7 or at level 5 it's a plus 7.
yeah, 12.
You're supposed to let the guest win, Stefan.
Oh,
That's good.
Lou, what is your final answer on the subject?
So I think it depends on who has the home turf. If you bring wizards into Terra AD, I think they're pretty level. I think if you take the shaman into a DCC fantasy setting, even if they had connection with their AI, I don't think they're quite as powerful, because I think it's that interaction with the environment that gives them the edge that helps them be on par. As a character class, I always tend to do some house ruling with them. I feel like and I've heard it. It's not just me. Every convention I've ever ran MCC at, I've heard somebody at the table say that they feel like the pure strain humans just don't quite have a fair shake. So altering things like you were saying to where it's more likely they can have artifacts, or maybe even start with an artifact at level 1. Maybe that levels things out, but they just need a little tweak, in my opinion.
Lou, what if somebody came from MCC before they played DCC, and the shaman was the image they had before they met the DCC wizard?
You mean would they never want to go back? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I guess. Like, would their opinion be different if they, kind of cut their teeth on playing a shaman first and then went to play wizard after?
Yeah.
I wonder if that feeling would still be there.
I don't know. It all depends on the game master, and how. Again, I feel like it's, what is that environment like in MCC, and what is the environment like in DCC? If the game master really has built this rich narrative about the patron AIs, and is really incorporating some of those artificial intelligence recognition checks and those artifact checks and things into their game, where those are important premises, then I think that they'll still want to go back.
Because if you got a shaman in your game, you're going to have a direct download to send your players on any kind of mission. Mm-hmm. Just the patron AI says, this is where I want you to go. Go do this, handle it. They're talking to patron AIs that run in the world, or are trying to run the world.
They always have that second world view that's like different than the world they're living in, which can be an interesting thing to mess with. Have them almost in a separate adventure than what the other characters are, in a sense.
All right. Well, we are out of time. All right. Lou, do you got any final words? Anything you got coming up that you'd like to share with us?
We got a set of pamphlet adventures for DCC and MCC that I'm hoping to have on Kickstarter in 2 weeks here. But we'll see. I had an artist that couldn't complete a project for me, so depending on whether I can get an artist to pick things up, it'll depend on whether I launch on time or not.
You've also got one that completed for Dare Luck Club, right?
Yeah. It's going to the pre-press here this week. So
are they available to pre-order that on Kickstarter?
That Kickstarter already went past, however you say that, is concluded. So I don't even know if you can do that or not. Can you make it so they can jump on afterwards?
It's like a backer kit thing. It's a separate system. Anyway, I'll say, Corporate Crash Course, they finished up Sailors. They're doing No Small Crimes in Lankmar tonight.
Can they email you, Lou, if they want to get on and get a copy?
DandelionGames@gmail.com. Can get a hold of me, and then all my MCC stuff, the Unnatural Selections and the 2 modules, I believe are still in stock there with the Goodman's store. So,
all right. And Stefan, you got anything you want to share with us?
Yeah, I'm doing my Kickstarter, Technomancer Candy Mountain, right now. I've talked plenty about it and Shield enough tonight, so I won't say anything more.
All right.
The Crash Courses, they're in the chat. They're ready for Lankmar. We gotta go.
They're telling us to get out of here. All right, everybody. We'll see you on July 11th at 5 o'clock, where our guest is going to be Bob Brinkman. He's going to go back over all these questions. Everybody have a good night. Thanks for joining us.
All right.
Thanks for having me on, guys.